April 26, 1943. Tunisia. Just after dawn. The desert is still cool, but the sun is already climbing, bleaching the horizon into pale gold. A German Panzer IV sits hull down behind a low ridge, its engine idling, the smell of hot oil mixing with dust and cordite from yesterday's fighting. Inside the turret, Oberfeldwebel Karl Weiss adjusts his binoculars and scans the flat expanse ahead. Then he sees them. Dark silhouettes, squat, boxy, rolling forward in a loose line, throwing up plumes of sand. American tanks. Weiss exhales a short laugh. Not nervous. Not afraid. Amused. Shermans, he mutters. The Americans are back. Around him, his crew grins. They've seen these machines before. Thin-skinned, tall silhouettes, easy to spot. Easy to kill. Compared to German armor, the M4 Sherman feels almost polite. Its armor plate thinner than what German crews trust with their lives. Its guns smaller than the long-barreled killers now rolling off German lines. To a veteran Panzer crew in North Africa, this is not a fair fight. The order comes down the line. Wait, let them close. You can almost feel the tension stretch, the desert holding its breath. Then the first German gun fires. A sharp crack, a flash. One Sherman jerks, smoke pouring from its turret ring. Another shot, another hit. Flames blossom, black and violent. Ow. The Germans cheer. This is how it's supposed to go. By 1943, German armored doctrine has earned its confidence the hard way. Blitzkrieg across Poland. France shattered in weeks. Soviet tanks burned by the thousands in 1941. Panzer crews have been trained to believe in superiority, better optics, better gunnery, better tactics, and above all, better tanks. The Sherman, by contrast, feels like a compromise. Designed to be shipped across oceans. Built to be simple, reliable, easy to maintain by men with minimal training. To German eyes, it looks like a civilian's idea of a tank. Tall, flat-sided, thin. The nickname spreads quickly among German units. Tommy Cocker, Tommy Cooker. One hit, and it burns. So when Shermans appear on the battlefield, German crews don't tense up. They lean forward, they count kills. But something strange begins to happen as weeks pass. The same battlefield, the same approaches, the same tactics. And yet, the Shermans keep coming. In Tunisia, German intelligence officers notice something unsettling. Loss reports from the Allies don't seem to slow them down. Entire U.S. armored units are mauled, sometimes shattered, and then, days later, they reappear. Re-equipped, reorganized. Back on the line. In the evenings, Panzer crews talk over cigarettes and weak coffee. They boast about kill counts, about burning 10, 12, 15 American tanks in a single engagement. But beneath the bravado, a question starts to creep in. Where are they getting them? Back in Germany, tank production is a delicate, fragile thing. Bombing raids disrupt factories. Skilled labor is scarce. Each Panther or Panzer IV requires time, precision, and materials Germany no longer has in abundance. A single tank is precious. Lose one, and it may not be replaced for months. The Americans don't seem to think this way. Captured Sherman wrecks tell part of the story. Welds are crude, but effective. Parts are standardized. Engines are designed to be swapped quickly. The tanks look less like handcrafted weapons and more like products of an assembly line. That unsettles German engineers who inspect them. It unsettles officers even more. Then comes Normandy. June 1944. Bocage country. If North Africa was a warning, France is the shock. Hedgerows rise like green walls, slicing the countryside into deadly corridors. German Panthers and Panzer IVs wait in ambush, guns trained on narrow lanes. The first Shermans appear and the slaughter begins. At close range, German guns punch through Sherman armor with terrifying ease. Turrets pop. Flames erupt. American crews bail out, some on fire, some not fast enough. Once again, the Germans laugh. And once again, the Shermans return. Not hours later, not days. The next morning, fresh tanks, fresh crews, same markings, same unit numbers. German after-action reports grow longer, more frantic. The tone shifts. What once sounded confident now sounds confused. "We destroyed the enemy armor repeatedly," one officer writes. Yet their numbers did not diminish. On the ground, panzer crews notice something else. When a German tank breaks down, it stays broken. When a Sherman throws a track, recovery vehicles swarm it. Mechanics work through the night. By dawn, it's back. The Americans are not fighting like Germans. They are not conserving machines. They are spending them. And that is when the truth begins to dawn. This war is no longer just about who has the better tank. It is about who can build more of them. Far from the hedgerows and deserts, across the Atlantic, an entirely different battlefield is in motion. One without gunfire, one without trenches. A battlefield of steel, conveyor belts, and roaring factories. And the man orchestrating it does not wear a tanker's black uniform. He wears a suit. His name is Major General Gladeon Barnes. Detroit. Late 1942. Midnight. The factory floor is never quiet. Even at this hour, the air vibrates with motion. Presses slamming steel into shape. Rivet guns barking in rapid bursts. Overhead cranes gliding like mechanical beasts through clouds of steam. Sparks cascade across concrete floors slick with oil. The smell is sharp, metallic, alive. Major General Gladeon Marcus Barnes walks the length of the assembly line without stopping. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. Barnes is not a battlefield commander. He has never sat inside a tank turret with rounds cracking overhead. But in this war, his domain is just as lethal and far more decisive. Barnes is an engineer, a production man. Before the war, he helped modernize American artillery manufacturing. Now, as head of Army Ordnance production, he is doing something the German General Staff never believed possible. It's turning war into math. Time, units, output. How fast can steel become a tank? The Sherman is not designed to win beauty contests. Barnes knows this. He also knows something else, something German planners dismiss as crude American thinking. A tank that exists is better than a perfect tank that does not. Every decision around the M4 Sherman is built on that principle. Standardized parts, simplified manufacturing, engines that can be replaced in the field. Armor that is good enough, not invincible, but producible. Barnes doesn't chase perfection. He chases volume. In meetings, when officers complain that the Sherman cannot duel Panthers head-on, Barnes listens politely. Then he slides production charts across the table. Numbers do not argue. By early 1943, American factories are producing thousands of Shermans. Not hundreds, thousands. Entire plants that once built automobiles now rolled tanks off the line in steady, relentless rhythm. A Sherman every few hours. Then one every hour. Then faster. The Germans, meanwhile, are still building tanks like precision instruments. Slow, intricate, vulnerable to disruption. One bombed factory can cripple an entire production line. One shortage of ball bearings can halt output for weeks. American factories absorb damage and keep moving. Barnes pushes harder. He demands interchangeable parts across manufacturers. He forces suppliers to meet uniform standards. If one plant falls behind, another picks up the slack. If a rail line is cut, shipments reroute. There is no single point of failure. The Sherman becomes less a vehicle and more a system. And that system stretches far beyond the factory floor. Across the Atlantic, German intelligence begins to notice the scale too late. Captured shipping manifests reveal convoys packed not just with tanks, but with spare engines, spare transmissions. Crates of track links, tools, fuel. endless fuel. Shermans do not arrive alone. They arrive with their own ecosystem. In Normandy, German tank crews begin to see the pattern clearly. Destroying a Sherman does not remove it from the war. It merely triggers a replacement process. A burned-out hull is photographed, logged, replaced. By the time a German unit submits a kill report, another Sherman is already crossing the channel. And the Americans do not fight as if each tank is irreplaceable. They push, they probe. They accept losses that would shatter German formations. Because Barnes' doctrine has quietly rewritten the rules. Attrition no longer favors the better gun. It favors the deeper factory. Inside German command circles, the mood darkens. Officers who once dismissed the Sherman as inferior now speak in hushed tones about numbers, about logistics, about sustainability. They realize something horrifying. For every Panther they destroy a Sherman with, 3 more appear. For every American crew killed, another arrives, trained, equipped, and ready. The Sherman does not need to be better. It only needs to keep coming. By late summer 1944, German tank strength in France begins to collapse, not from tactical defeat alone, but from exhaustion. Crews are rotated without machines. Veterans are issued unfamiliar tanks with insufficient spare parts. Meanwhile, American armor divisions grow stronger with time. Their maintenance units become masters of repair. Their crews gain experience rapidly, surviving long enough to learn. Their tanks evolve better ammunition, wet stowage, improved tactics. The Sherman improves while Germany bleeds, and Barnes keeps counting. By war's end, the United States will build nearly 50,000 Shermans. Germany will never come close. Back in Normandy, a German panzer commander stands beside his damaged Panther, waiting for parts that may never arrive. He watches a column of Shermans roll past in the distance, engines humming, radios crackling, dust rising in a seemingly endless stream. He does not laugh this time. He does the math. And for the first time, he understands that this war is no longer winnable by skill alone. The Americans are not trying to outfight Germany. They are trying to outlast it, and they are succeeding. But the final realization, the one that breaks morale completely, is still ahead. Because the Shermans are about to prove that numbers can do what armor cannot. They are about to fight back. Normandy, July 1944, near St. Lay. Rain turns the fields into mud, thick and clinging. Engines growl low, deliberately. American Shermans edge forward through the hedgerows, their hulls streaked with dirt, antennas whipping in the wind. Infantry moves close behind them, pressed tight to steel they trust more than open ground. Somewhere ahead, a Panther waits. The German gunner is calm. He has done this before. He knows the range. He knows the weak points. When the first Sherman noses out from behind a hedgerow, he fires. The shot lands true. The American tank shudders, smoke pouring from the turret. Flames follow. Another kill. The German crew exhales. A job done. Then something unexpected happens. Instead of retreating, the American column keeps moving. Another Sherman pushes forward. Then another. One is hit. Another skirts the wreck. A third fires smoke. A fourth swings wide, crushing a hedgerow under its tracks. The Panther fires again and again, but it cannot fire fast enough. This is the moment German tank doctrine was never built to survive. American armored units are no longer charging blindly. They have learned. They flank. They coordinate with infantry. They call artillery. They accept losses because losses are part of the plan. A Sherman is expendable. A Panther is not. The Panther's transmission groans under stress. Its crew feels the heat build inside the turret. Ammunition runs low. And then, from the side, a Sherman appears close. Too close, the American gun fires. The Panther burns. By nightfall, the battlefield tells a strange story. Shermans littered the ground, many destroyed. But the Germans have pulled back. Their tanks are gone, either burning or withdrawn to avoid encirclement. On paper, German gunnery looks impressive. On the map, the line has moved. This is the quiet revolution of American warfare. It is not about duels, it is about pressure. Every German tank commander now faces the same nightmare calculation. If he waits too long, he is flanked. If he fires too early, he reveals his position. If he destroys one Sherman, two more may force him to move, and movement is deadly. German crews begin to describe the Sherman not as weak, but as relentless. It is everywhere. American radio chatter fills the air. Artillery responds within minutes. Kajabo's fighter bombers prowl overhead, waiting for a Panther to break cover. And always, more Shermans arrive. Behind the front lines, American repair depots hum with activity. Tanks that would be total losses in German service are dragged back, patched, refitted, returned. Crews rotate into replacements without breaking unit cohesion. Experience accumulates. German losses do not. Every Panther lost is a wound Germany cannot heal. In August, as Allied forces break out of Normandy, the imbalance becomes impossible to ignore. Entire German armored units are under strength before they even engage. Crews are ordered to abandon damaged vehicles for lack of fuel. Some sabotage their own tanks before retreating. American armored divisions, meanwhile, surge forward with confidence that borders on audacity. They know the math now too. They know that if they push hard enough, the enemy will crack. Captured German officers speak openly during interrogations. Not of tactics, not of bravery, but of production. You replace in days what we cannot replace in months. One major admits quietly. Another simply shakes his head. The laughter is gone. By the time Allied forces close the Falaise pocket, the result is catastrophic for Germany. Tanks destroyed. Crews lost. Entire formations erased, not by a single decisive engagement, but by constant pressure they could not escape. The Sherman has done its job, not by being perfect, but by being present. And as American forces push toward Germany itself, something darker spreads among German armored crews, a realization that no defensive line, number wonder weapon, no tactical brilliance can stop what is coming. Because the factories are still running, the ships are still crossing, and the Shermans are still rolling. Ahead lies the final phase of the war in Europe, where German tank crews will come face to face with the ultimate truth. They were never fighting a tank. They were fighting an entire industrial civilization, and it was winning. Germany, autumn 1944. Near the West Wall, the forests are heavy with mist. The air smells of wet leaves, diesel, and decay. A lone Panther sits concealed beneath camouflaged netting, its once pristine armor scarred by shrapnel and hasty repairs. Inside, the crew waits in silence. They are no longer eager. They are tired. The commander studies his map under dim red light. The symbols tell a brutal story, Allied units everywhere. American armored divisions advancing along multiple axes, supply routes stretching unbroken from the French coast straight into the heart of the Reich. The Sherman has followed them home. When the fighting begins, it feels different now, not chaotic, not uncertain, inevitable. Shermans appear in columns that seem to have no end. They move with confidence, covered by artillery and aircraft, supported by fuel trucks and repair teams that arrive almost as quickly as the tanks themselves. German gunners still score hits. They still burn American tanks. But the effect is hollow. The battlefield no longer reacts. There is no pause, no regrouping, no collapse in enemy momentum. A destroyed Sherman is simply driven around. German tank crews begin to understand what defeat actually feels like. It is not a dramatic rout. It is repetition without progress. Engagement after engagement, each one costing irreplaceable machines and men. while the enemy absorbs losses as if they barely register. One German officer writes in his diary, "We destroy them tactically and lose strategically. Fuel shortages cripple mobility. Spare parts are cannibalized from wrecks. Crews are issued tanks they have never trained on. Replacement drivers arrive with only hours behind the controls." The Americans, meanwhile, are rotating experienced crews back into action with upgraded Shermans, wet ammunition, stowage, reducing fires. Better radios, improving coordination, improved armor layouts, increasing survivability. The Sherman is evolving. Germany is decaying. Captured depots tell the final story. When German officers inspect seized American supply dumps, they are stunned into silence. Endless rows of tanks. Fuel stacked like cordwood. Ammunition in quantities they cannot comprehend. This is not an army living hand to mouth. This is an army built to advance forever. The laughter that once echoed in panzer units is now replaced by bitterness and sometimes envy. German veterans speak quietly of American mechanics, of their speed, of the way broken machines simply vanish and return whole. They realize that skill and courage are no longer enough. You can feel it in the way German tanks fight now, cautiously, defensively, desperately. Every engagement is about survival, not victory. Every movement risks losing a machine that cannot be replaced. And yet the Americans keep coming. By the time the Allies cross the Rhine, German armored resistance is a shadow of what it once was. Panthers and Panzer IVs fight bravely, but they fight alone. No reserves follow, no replacements arrive. The Industrial War is over. Germany lost it years earlier, the moment it bet on superiority instead of sustainability. The Sherman did not defeat Germany by itself. It revealed the truth, that wars are not won by the best weapon on the battlefield, but by the system that never stops feeding it. As the final months unfold, German tank crews confront the bitterest realization of all. They were never meant to win this war, not against an enemy who could lose a tank today and replace it tomorrow. The guns fall silent. The factories do not. April 1945, Western Germany. Early morning. A thin fog hangs over a shattered village. Roofs are caved in. Stone walls are split by shellfire. A column of M4 Shermans idles at the crossroads, engines ticking softly. Crews perched on turrets, sipping coffee from dented tins. Some of the tanks bear fresh weld marks where armor has been patched only days earlier. They look ordinary. That is the point. An American lieutenant checks his watch and signals forward. The column moves out smoothly, almost casually, toward the next objective. There is no sense of finality, no triumph in the air. Just momentum. This is how the war ends for Germany, not in a single climactic duel, but under the steady weight of something that cannot be stopped. The Sherman is often remembered as a flawed tank. Historians will debate its armor thickness, its gun caliber, its silhouette. German veterans will always remember how easily it burned when hit. But that memory misses the larger truth. The Sherman was never meant to be a lone knight on the battlefield. It was a cog in a vast, unstoppable machine. Every Sherman you see in these final days represents not just steel and rivets, but dock workers unloading ships at night, train crews hauling loads across continents, factory workers tightening bolts by the thousands, engineers refining designs while battles were still being fought. It represents time weaponized. German tank crews learned this too late. They believed superiority could overcome numbers, that better training and better machines could offset any disadvantage. They were wrong. By the end of the war, American armored divisions are battle-hardened, confident, and terrifyingly well supplied. Their tactics have matured. Their coordination with infantry, artillery, and air power is seamless. The Sherman, once mocked, is now everywhere, not because it is perfect, but because it fits the war America is fighting. A war of movement, a war of endurance, a war of production. In the ruins of Germany, abandoned Panthers and Panzer IVs sit rusting by the roadside, out of fuel, out of parts, out of hope. Nearby, Shermans roll past without stopping, their crews barely glancing at the once feared machines. The contrast is unmistakable. One side ran out of tanks, the other ran out of enemies. After the surrender, German armored veterans will speak with reluctant admiration about what defeated them. Not the Sherman itself, but the reality it represented. An enemy that could lose and keep going. An enemy that treated machines as expendable and men as replaceable only after every effort was made to save them. An enemy that understood the true nature of modern war. The laughter that began in the deserts of North Africa ends here, in the rubble of Germany. It ends not with anger, but with exhaustion. Because in the end, German tank crews did not lose to a better tank. They lost to a better system. A system that turned factories into weapons, logistics into strategy, and time itself into an ally. That is what the M4 Sherman really was. Not a miracle machine. A mirror reflecting the kind of war America was prepared to fight, and the kind Germany could never survive. End.